Oh my God, somebody bring the red jerseys back on a daily basis. I need it every single day.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We're the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As always, I'm Brayden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5 Wasco. Carter First, too, as well on our main account at Locked On Jays. You can also find us on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Blue Jays. And you guys have been killing it with the subscribers lately, but if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. It means more than you guys would ever know. When you do hit those, it's free. It's completely easy and available. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. It helps us out a ton. And if you're listening anywhere else, we do appreciate that. But if you do go on the YouTube, you get shorts, the podcasts, the live streams, all the videos, everything. So yeah, and we are planning to do a live stream coming up soon because, man, this team is just so exciting to watch that why not get, all the fans together in one live stream and, hang out, chat, watch the game. Hopefully it'll be a game that they win. But a lot to get into because what an amazing, outstanding, probably I said yesterday that, that last game might've been my favorite game of the season. Well, this one might've outdone it because George Springer apparently has found the will and power of God back in his game. Talk about a bounce back player of the year. We'll talk about George Springer a ton here in this first segment. Obviously, just the game as in totality. I mean, just, as you go through this game, it sort of felt like, man, are they going to be able to come back, when they're down 2-0 early on and then an absolute explosion. Also, we're going to talk game 3 and game 4 a little bit as well. And just what we can expect from the rest of the series. So stick around for all that. I know we did a ton of injury updates yesterday. Nothing really has changed. Bichette still questionable. So we won't talk too much on injuries today. But yeah, Carter, let's start George Springer, my man, because I don't even care about anything else right now. Hat tips to this guy. We, us, Blue Jays Nation, the Blue Jays land in totality, totally threw this guy to the wayside after last season. And honestly, rightfully so, because he was straight up horrible. And somehow, from the depths of hell, George Springer has risen again.
And it's so important to the Toronto Blue Jays' success. Oh, by the way, great to be back, obviously. Max Scherzer start. That was very interesting to see. Hopefully, the guys had a great time with Skylar and Brayden on the podcast. But it is obviously nice to be back. And George Springer is back and better than ever. Oh, my goodness. This guy continues to get better every single day we see this guy play baseball. Most home runs on the Toronto Blue Jays. Highest OPS on the Toronto Blue Jays. He's walking. He's barreling up baseballs. He's still playing pretty good defense for a 35-year-old. He's hitting 2 in the lineup. Could hit 1. Could hit 3. Could hit 4. Doesn't matter where you're putting this guy. It's unbelievable stuff from George Springer. An absolute resurrection from last season. Like, we expected him to be slightly better from last season, but we, at best, were maybe he's a slightly above average hitter. This guy is carrying the Toronto Blue Jays. He's one of the guys that is fully carrying this offense. He is just unbelievable. Just every single time that we think, oh, maybe that is the end of George Springer. Maybe we're going to see that kind of slump that we're expecting from a 35-year-old that didn't had the worst season of his career in 2024. 7 RBIs in this baseball game. And just taking a step back from just the George Springer stuff, going into this series, you're looking at these matchups, you're looking at these pitching matchups. You think Carlos Rodon's on the mound. This guy's been one of the best lefties in all of baseball, a very good pitcher. And then Max Fried may be the best lefty in all of baseball up to this point, other than Tiger Skubal, but he's just you get to him. The George Springer gets to him. Andrus Jimenez hits a home run in this game. It's just doesn't matter who necessarily it is. Just if I'm looking at the Toronto Blue Jays team, if I'm looking at any 2 games in the series that they might have lost, it's the first 2 games of this series. And George Springer, especially in the second game, was a massive reason, if not maybe even the only reason you could say that the Toronto Blue Jays did win this game. Scoring 4 runs on Max Fried is a big accomplishment, especially from what he has been doing, how stuff has been this season.
Yeah, and you know what? For those of you that watched the TikTok or the short or the Instagram reel last night, when I was sort of talking about that, I said, there is the feeling around this team. I mean, you felt it if you were in the ballpark or watching the game, or watching the broadcast yesterday. Canada Day game And you know what? Me and Skyler were sort of teeing it up. Like, you can feel the excitement building, a series to lead the AL East on Canada Day in the red jerseys, packed barn. This is like, stuff of movies here at the Toronto Blue Jays team with the fall of last season. The absolute heart and grit that this team has shown this year. If it's Kirk, if it's Ernie, if it's Vlad from yesterday or 2 days ago, if it's George from yesterday, as you guys are watching this, I mean, this team it's guys stepping up when you need them to the most. And I know this feels like I just had this conversation with Skyler yesterday, because it's the same thing. I said how big it was for Vlad to show up in that moment and get that base hit to score those runs that turned the game around. George Springer hitting 2 bombs turns the game around pretty much by himself, and not by himself. I mean, the rest of the team had to get on base. They had to do their jobs, but George Springer puts a nail in the coffin. And this is such a difference when you're looking at the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays compared to the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays, is the clutch batting and the big moments and you're never out of a ball game Jays. That is what's so massive about this team. And I think the complete difference maker. And you know what, Carter, me and Skyler talked a little bit about this yesterday, but just the fact that you have Daulton Varsho missing from this lineup and Anthony Santander just talking offensively. And if those two guys can get their bats going when they, eventually return, I mean, if I'm an opposing team, I'm terrified of this offense. And that is something I definitely didn't think I'd be saying in 2025.
And I know I've done this before. I'm going to do it again. Like, look at the lineup they fielded out today. Like, if you look at this lineup at the start of the season, you're like, this team is 20 games under 500. Like, this team has no chance whatsoever. Like, going over this lineup, Ernie Clement leading off. People didn't even think Ernie Clement should be on this team at the start of the season. George Springer, who we've gone over obviously a bunch, will continue to go over in this specifically episode, but probably for the rest of the season, just how good this guy's been. He's hitting number 2, Vladimir hitting number 3. That's kind of a given. Alejandro Kirk hitting 4. That's not something that I thought would be a regular thing coming into this game. Schneider hitting number 5. I don't know if he should be hitting number 5 necessarily, but he is here right now. Nathan Lucas Malstraw, like Andrus Jimenez again. Leo Jimenez being in this game, that was a little bit of an interesting piece there. You see Leo Jimenez coming up in a call-up from the Toronto Blue Jays with Bichette being out with that knee injury. Nothing serious necessarily, but you do need a little bit more infield depth. Leo Jimenez being a very good defensive shortstop. So now you have Andrus Jimenez, Leo Jimenez. That kind of is a little bit of a tongue twister. They kind of sound similar, and they do similar things, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Leo Jimenez, very underrated defender, a guy that's probably one of the reasons why he is up on this team, is that he does have a very good floor. But just looking at this lineup, looking at this overall team in totality, whether it's the players that are out, like looking at this lineup, you have 3 of your major bats that aren't in this lineup. You're going against Max Fried, who is unbelievable. Aaron Judge on the other side, Cole Bellinger on the other side. Doesn't matter who it necessarily is. The New York Yankees being first in the AL East going into the series, this was a massive swing. Could have went, if the things went really, really bad, this team could have been 7 games down in this series after things are all said and done. If things go really, really well, the Jays could be first in the AL East. And right now, they have gone 2 games. They've won 2 games out of the 4. They can continue on this trajectory. Even at this point, if they can split the series and go 3-1, or split the last 2 games of the series and go 3-1 in the rest of the series, you're 1 game back from the New York Yankees. You have all the momentum in the world with the Los Angeles Angels, the Athletics, and the Chicago White Sox coming up in these next few games. That is a very lenient schedule, and this is not like you couldn't be in a better spot right now as a Toronto Blue Jays franchise.
Well, and the crazy part, Carter, and just before we take a break to go into segment 2 here and really dissect the game a little bit, the Rays ended up losing to the Athletics in back-to-back days. So you're not only
shout out Denzel Clark leading that team.
Yeah, exactly. You're not only helping yourself out, you're also getting helped out by other teams beating AL East opponents that you need to pass at some point, right? Like the Rays could have made this difficult. The Blue Jays could have had a great series against the Yankees, but then, they're 2 games back of the Rays somehow. Well, not so much, because the Athletics step up and do a job the Blue Jays needed them to do. So, and don't get me wrong, I think the Rays are overperforming right now. So I do think you will see eventually them sort of trickle off a little bit. But for right now, for this AL East race, at least to get into the All-Star break and then the deadline, if the Blue Jays are in a spot where they're right neck and neck battling for the AL East lead and this is crazy to say, but maybe not having to play in a wild card game, this could change the complete outlook that we have as fans moving into the playoffs, because now you're not having to rely on, it's a shorter series. Can they get it done? Blah, blah, blah. No, you go right to that first round of the playoffs, technically first round of the playoffs. And you know, does that give your team a better shot? It gives you a little bit more leeway for having an off game here or there in the playoffs. That is the beauty of leading your division. So I think that's something the Blue Jays are chasing and are doing a very good job doing. But Carter, like I said, we do have to dissect this game a little bit, sort of. I don't want to go play by play necessarily, but dive a little bit deeper into the numbers and performances from other guys because, you know, I could sit here and talk George Springer all the live long day because of how good he's been. But let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about all that before we really dive deep into what the rest of the series is going to look like.
Today's episode is sponsored by Supply House. Get the supplies that you need for the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order products online. The easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so we always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. The Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5 for 5% off your first order, and that is at supplyhouse.com.
So, Carter, just continuing on here, we're obviously talking about the game, and we went over George Springer and sort of what this team has been able to accomplish with taking the first two games against the Yankees. Me and you talked about it beforehand, before the series really got underway, of how we'd be super thrilled with a series, or not super thrilled, but we'd be good with a series split. Now, or again, we'll get into more of this later, but our aspirations maybe now should be higher. But in saying that, Carter, let's go over some of the game stats here and some of the player breakdowns. I'm going to start with Kevin Gausman here. He does allow 2 runs, gives up 6 hits, goes 5 innings, only has 3 Ks. I think we could all say, and Kevin Gausman would probably say it himself, that this wasn't his best stuff today. Everything just wasn't moving exactly how he wanted it to. The spots weren't exactly where he wanted them to be. But I think in totality, again, it's he only gives up 2 runs. He gives you a chance to compete in a ball game. And I think, you know, that's what we ask out of the pitchers, is when you don't have your best day, you still give this team a chance to win. And, you know, I think that's the difference from what we saw from Kevin Gausman, you know, even if we look back a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, compared to now, after he did have that great start and now into this one, is the ability to not completely crumble, right? It's if you don't have your stuff, you have to adjust to that. Okay, now do I have to pitch in different spots? Now do I have to maybe do some different sequencing? How does that all work? And I think Kevin Gausman did a great job of that today, of understanding, hey, early on, I didn't have my best stuff. Now let's dial in and adjust to you know, how I'm playing this specific day.
See, and with Kevin Gausman, like up to this point, at least specifically with Gausman, is that it hasn't necessarily been like a velo problem. It hasn't necessarily been a stuff problem. I guess other than the splitter, there was a horizontal problem where it was going left to right. But when you look at Kevin Gausman, like, you're not worried about him possibly having an injury or not necessarily being up to the par that he was before in terms of the stuff and just the physical ability. Kevin Gausman still has the physical ability to be a very good pitcher. It's just whether he does have the command on, whether he does have that splitter moving more so north and south rather than east and west. A small mechanical change can completely impact a pitcher, and it can completely change the outlook of what a pitcher is going to do on the day-to-day. And Kevin Gausman, kind of like you said, didn't necessarily have the command today, did have a few walks, did lose some hitters that he probably wouldn't want to lose, would want some pitches back in this outing. That is a lot of pitchers in Major League Baseball. You're not going to throw a perfect pitch every single time. And really only has that one blurb in the first inning. Kind of struggled in that first inning, but you got a prolific Yankees lineup. This is a very good offense. And if you're Kevin Gausman, you're trying to kind of attack early. You don't necessarily get that done. You give up a couple of hits in that first inning. But credit to Kevin Gausman for being resilient. Credit to him for not letting that game get out of hand and keeping this Toronto Blue Jays offense in this baseball game. That's one thing we talk about all the time watching this team. And when we compare it from 2024 to 2025, we don't usually like to talk about 2024, but it's really hard to talk about that when there's such a nice turnover like this, especially when things went so bad in 2024. And obviously, it's so much more fun watching this baseball team in 2025. But Kevin Gausman is one of those things that wasn't necessarily the greatest in 2024. It hasn't necessarily been the greatest in 2025 either. I don't know if we necessarily have that consistent vintage Kevin Gausman anymore at this point, because we have seen him struggle with a lot of consistency. But Kevin Gausman is that veteran guy. If he doesn't have his stuff, he is going to be able to battle. If he doesn't get every single umpiring call, which there is an instance that I do want to go into here with Kevin Gausman, he is going to be able to show resilience and be able to battle through adversity and handle those situations. So Kevin Gausman still is a very important part to this team. He's maybe not the piece that he once was necessarily, but very nice from Kevin Gausman, especially after that first inning, to be able to battle, be resilient, and give this team some innings, especially when they don't really have any off days whatsoever. They have almost over a 2-week stretch where this team doesn't have an off day. So credit to Kevin Gausman for being resilient today.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Not just him. I mean, you look at the entirety of the bullpen today, and, there's a lot of guys. We talked about the Mason Fluharty problem yesterday quite a bit, as we have been as of late. We said that is a guy that's probably going to have to be moved eventually down. But you know what? For right now, with this bullpen, I mean, for the majority of these guys, they're giving you exactly what you want. I mean, Nick Sandlin goes in. He throws a gem. Justin Brule comes in, and then doesn't really have a great day.
Yeah, he had me worried, not gonna lie. He had me sitting on the edge of my seat, not in a good way.
And you know what? The John Schneider makes the move early, can get him out when he does, and throws Brayden Fisher in, who, I mean, didn't get a lot of help from the infielding in that seventh inning.
Tough error by Ernie there.
Ernie just misplayed that ball. And again, I'm not going to harp on Ernie too much about this one. It's not a good play, but it's not a play that this guy misses very often at all. So again, I'm going to say it, not a good play. Could have cost the Jays this game. But again, not too hard looking back now.
It's not going to cost the Jays the game when you got Big Daddy Springer, coming off the bench. Not off the bench necessarily, but coming out of the dugout and just asserting dominance. Honestly, just putting his nuts on the table and winning the Toronto Blue Jays that baseball game. What a performance. 7 RBIs from the 35-year-old. I didn't think I'd be saying that at all in 2025. And just like, I know we talk about George Springer a lot, but I'm honestly just astounded from what this guy has been doing. I just want to give him, again, probably the last little bit of flowers from this podcast. This is a guy that's more than deserving at this point. You could argue the MVP of the Toronto Blue Jays season up to this point. But with George Springer, one of the biggest things last year is that it wasn't like necessarily a contact problem. I kind of brought it up in the podcast previously a couple days ago. Is that with George Springer, the contact was almost too good in some scenarios. He was swinging at pitches that were outside the zone, not pitches that you can necessarily do damage on, and he was rolling over a ton. So George Springer this year has made that little bit of a change. He is kind of sacrificing some of the whiff for a little bit more power, but at the end of the day, I'd rather him hit less balls in totality, but more balls hard, and that's going to lead him to be more successful. I think that has been a big reason why he has been successful up to this point. So George Springer is whiffing 2.6% more than he was last season, but his expected slugging went up to 526. It wasn't a 502 last season. That is a massive jump, especially from a middle of the order bat, especially with Daulton Varsho and Anthony Santander out. George Springer's kind of been that Anthony Santander piece that we were hoping for. That acquisition that if he had this type of offense, we'd be relatively okay with. I think you'd want more home runs from Santander in this instance, but 13 home runs from George Springer. Kind of, again, fulfilling that role that we need from the Toronto Blue Jays, or just from a Toronto Blue Jays power hitter in the middle of this order. Barrel rate as well. Eye test proves this. You just watched George Springer, 9.3 barrel percentage last season, up to 15.2. So that's a 5.9% increase. He's walking more, 9.8 walk rate, up to 12.7. Just being way more selective, looks a lot, very confident at the plate. And that home run, the first home run that he had, that's a Max Fried curveball on the outside part of the plate. That's a roll over to third base every single day of the week last season. This season, George Springer stays back, able to launch that pitch into the left field seats. Just want to give him a little bit more credit there, kind of go over some little bit of other stats that have been contributing to George Springer's success. But again, it's just integral to this team and a very unlikely source. Not really anyone expected to have this kind of almost re-emergence, like more of a breakout season. It's just absolutely insane what George Springer has done this season, especially with just all the doubters, us included, for what he was going to do in this 2025 season. Not a lot of people like George Springer doing this.
No. I mean, I can even go back to our hot take segment, which I brought up to Skyler yesterday. And
love
you
that.
know what? No, none of us had George Springer going off like this. So congratulations to him, and honestly, well, congratulations to all of us because of what George Springer is doing. We get to watch some great baseball.
Makes this team so much more fun. It's actually unbelievable. Imagine George Springer just like not on this team.
Yeah. Well, no,
like, I know his WAR is probably like 3, but let's be honest, like the visual WAR is probably about 6 for George Springer at this point.
I was gonna say I got home from work today. I had an early shift, and you know what? I was dead tired, and I'm like, God, I hope I stay awake through this Jays game. But I'm on my edge of my seat. I couldn't sleep if I wanted to with how exciting that game was. And so that is a unbelievable performance. And I mean, there's a lot of guys we can go into. Obviously, Vladdy didn't have a great day going 0 for 5. But again, he won us the first game. So you're sort of thrilled, and then whatever. So it sort of gets overlooked because of the George Springer stuff and the Andrus Gimenez home run too. So every guys are going to have off days. I mean, Vladdy made a little bit of a tough play as well. Goes up to get a ball, goes off his glove, and gets charged with the Blue Jays' second error of the game. So in the same inning that was. So I was thinking, oh my God, in that part, I was like, we might be dead in the water here. And then all of a sudden, yeah, the boys rally a little bit, and George Springer puts that, sends that one over the wall. The first home run he hit was like, oh, I hope that gets out of here. Second one, immediately off the bat, you're like, I jumped out of my seat. I'm like, yep, that is to the moon. So I think I put out a tweet at the same time. I don't know. I was just out of my chair. I was ready to put the Jays jersey on and just walk down the street. That's how confident in this team I was feeling.
Well, and that was one of those ones that's like the Yankees have been put to sleep here. Like that home run, it's a 5-4 baseball game. George Springer, like right away, you just know. And that's such a fun feeling, especially as a fan, when you see a player that you see a middle pitch and you see them just absolutely pimp the crap out of it. And you know it's gone before the Rogers Center camera even pans the baseball. That is such a good feeling to have, especially against the New York Yankees. It's so much better. Probably like almost twice as good when you beat the New York Yankees, especially with their 2 best pitchers on the mound. Like you got Will Warren coming up. Clark Schmidt has been very good, but you should, in theory, have more of a pitching advantage in these next 2 games. And this team has scored 17 runs in 2 games against the New York Yankees. They are 1 game back from the Yankees for number 1 in the AL East. So just a very good spot to be in. There's a couple other things I just wanted to go into. First one is just Ernie Clement's walking all of a sudden. This guy just never walked last year. I think he had 8 walks. He said 5 walks in the last 5 games. I don't know what's going on with Ernie Clement. All of a sudden he's just being selective. But what hasn't this guy done this season? I mean, he's the leading off right now, which not exactly what you want. I'm not saying he should be the leadoff hitter for full time. So when Bichette comes back, easy fix. But he's been good enough that you can throw him in that spot, and you still expect there to be some sort of production, especially against left-handed pitching. You expect him to have productive at-bats in that spot, and he has had good quality at-bats to drive runners, especially the drive runners especially in this last game. So they're just doing it. It's a very unlikely way of them doing it with so many powerhouses, especially on this offense out, and this offense still being as prolific as it is. You brought the runners in scoring position. They're like top 5 in the league in batting average with runners in scoring position. That was a huge problem last season. We're not really seeing that transpire over to this. And then there was the second thing that I want to get into. This is like really the only negative thing that I wanted to go into over this podcast, but I want to get ahead of it when he did have a good game. I know Andrus Gimenez has had a home run in this game. I know he's had a relatively decent stretch, but I'm over Andrus Gimenez. I'm over the Andrus Gimenez experience. I think that trade will go down as one of the worst trades of not even the Toronto Blue Jays season. I think over the Toronto Blue Jays last 10 years. It's like we can break it down from a contract perspective. But we look at it defensively, unbelievable player. Not going to take anything away from him there. One of the best defenders in all baseball, is going to provide you that defensive war and has had a good stretch. And I hope he completely proves me wrong, can continue this momentum. But I figured I'd get ahead of it now and not just jump on it when I think it's going to go down. It's going to be another big valley for Andrus Gimenez. Not sure why this guy's hitting 6 in the order at any time. I know he had a home run in this baseball game. Andrus Gimenez, honestly, shouldn't even be in this lineup. I think that may or may not be a bold take. This bat's just not good enough for this baseball team. But however, when you have an offense that it has been playing as good as they have been right now, not the worst thing to throw in a guy like Andrus Gimenez, especially if he's going to give you one of the best defensive. He's going to be one of the best defensive infielders in all of baseball. You have a little bit more leeway there, but Andrus Gimenez is just not at all what I expected him to be at the plate whatsoever. And I didn't necessarily have high expectations for him coming into this season.
I'll say this. I think we look at the Andrus Gimenez deal very differently. if Anthony Santander is the Anthony Santander we expected, and if the Blue Jays would have brought in one more power bat. I think then we look at that as a, hey, we're going to lock down the infield with a guy at second base, have a great defense there, and we still have then George Springer, Anthony Santander, playing what we expected, and this other power bat, all to surround Vlad, Bo, and all this stuff. And I think we look at it very differently if it gets to that point with this production from Andrus Gimenez. I don't think we're still happy about it, but I think you're okay with him hitting like 8 or 9 and playing very solid defense if your top 7 guys are all absolutely going nuts. But without Anthony Santander, without that extra power bat, especially without Bo Bichette in this one, without Daulton Varsho, this lineup is quite thin. And I think that's why we especially notice when it's like if Andrus Gimenez, it comes up in a bigger moment and it's hitting in the 6 hole. That's why we're pretty upset. And honestly, rightfully so. He hasn't done enough offensively to prove to us that this is a good contract. But I think it would have been looked at a little bit differently if the Blue Jays would have done what we said originally at the trade when this trade happened. Oh, if you go out and you get Santander and you get this other power bat, I think maybe we have a different view of this, and he's playing really good second base and everything like this, and him and Bo are firing in all cylinders around the middle of the infield. But right now it doesn't look good at all, Carter. And I think you're right with the sort of emergence of Ernie Clement with the option of Addison Barger at 3. I think there are better options to have in this lineup, especially when some of those big dogs return from injury.
See, there was one thing that you said that completely stuck out for me is you have Andrus Gimenez playing at second base, very prolific second base, and hitting 8-9 in the lineup. This guy's making $23 million over the next few seasons. Do you want a guy that's making $23 million hitting 8 and 9 in your lineup? Is that going to be good enough for a baseball team? Like, There is no chance in hell that's good enough. I don't care how good of defense you're playing, unless you're making backflip catches like for the Samad Bananas all of a sudden. Like, if you're not doing that type of stuff and like you're not being at least okay at the plate, like again, he doesn't have to hit 280. He doesn't have to have an 800 OPS. If he can even be around a 700 OPS, I don't even think he has to hit that. If he can be like a 675 OPS kind of guy, just get on base, work walks, work counts, especially, and he is okay at doing that. But just looking at this contract and look at the assets that you did give up, I don't know if Spencer Horwitz necessarily has a spot on this team right now, but giving up anything for Andrus Gimenez with that contract, maybe it's more of a short-term solution. But as we get farther and farther kind of into these years, where we're going to have to pay him $23 million, $23 million, $23 million, and you'll have a club option in 2030. 2030 feels like a long time away. It might fly by. That does feel like a long time away. I'm getting ahead of it now. I think that is not going to work out whatsoever for the Toronto Blue Jays, and I don't even think that's a hot take whatsoever.
No, I don't think so either. I think the money is astronomical for a defensive second baseman. I don't understand. I didn't really understand it when it happened, but I think, again, looking back, not my money. I don't really care. We said that when it came to Vlad and whoever else. But at the end of the day, if it's going to then limit what this team can do in bringing in other assets, that's a problem, and taking up a roster spot and doing all this. So again, I think we'll talk more about this when it comes down to the trade deadline. And, this team is wanting to make a move.
I've seen some mock trades with people trying to flip Andrus Gimenez to other teams. If they can make that happen, unbelievable. But we kind of remember last year when we were at this point, we're like, hey, if we go trade George Springer and drop that contract, this team might look okay. And I hope maybe somehow we get that with Andrus Gimenez. Again, I didn't think this would happen with George Springer. I don't think it's going to happen with Andrus Gimenez. But hey, I would love to be wrong once again with this Andrus Gimenez stuff. And like you said, in hindsight, with Ernie Clement doing what he's doing right now, it makes it look a little bit worse with Andrus Gimenez. But hey, I'm not going to complain when he hits a home run and goes 2 for 3 in a baseball game. But I just wanted to get ahead of it because I do think that overall, in a full sample size over a season, Andrus Gimenez is not exactly what you want at the plate. And that's putting it lightly. But there is still a couple games that we do need to get into. The Toronto Blue Jays go over the 2 hard ones, and they came out with 2 victories. They got 2 more games that, in theory, on paper, they do have the advantage in the pitching matchups. So we are going to break that down after this short break coming up.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. I talk about Monarch Money all the time because it has helped me. Whether it's with food purchasing, if I'm out or hey, what do I spend on a night out when I go with my friends? And can I dial that back somehow? Where can I invest my money? Monarch is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, spending all in one place. So in additional managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. 50% is crazy. Take advantage of that. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. So, Carter, continuing on, you said it. I mean, this team has won the 2 games we didn't expect them to win. And now they go on the quote unquote easier side of the 4 games, but it is baseball. Weird things do happen. And I guess all I really want to know, because we did do a series breakdown, we did do, me and Skylar did look ahead to what was the second game. What do you just expect? I mean, with this team now 2-0, is it take full advantage and take the next 2, or is that just too crazy to realistically predict?
I think you can't expect that. The New York Yankees are a very good baseball team. They are one of the better teams for sure in the AL East. Even though I don't love the New York Yankees, you got to give them their respect. They do have a lot of very good hitters on that baseball team. They haven't not the greatest bullpen of all time. They do have some starters as well that have been getting better as the season has progressed. When Luis Heel comes back, I think that starting rotation will be very good, especially if they did have Gerrit Cole. I know that's a big if because they don't have Gerrit Cole. That does help the Toronto Blue Jays out a little bit. So I am perfectly fine here if you split the series now with the last 2 games at least. Not with a full-on series split, but if you win one game, lose the next game, lose the first this upcoming game, win the next one, if you can take this 3-1 now and just split the next 2 games, that puts you 1 game back of the New York Yankees. That in totality is a very good series win against an AL East team. I think since you did put yourself in this position, I would not have been mad if it was a 1-1 series split at this point. But going into the series, I had this Jose Berrios start against Will Warren. Will be the start that is happening on this Wednesday game. I had that as pretty much a must win for the Toronto Blue Jays in the series. I had no faith in the Toronto Blue Jays in that Max Fried start. I'm not going to lie. Prove me wrong. Thank God they did. Thought they had a chance against Carlos Rodon. They did get the job done there. Will Warren should be a guy that this team can take advantage of, especially if Bo Bichette is in the lineup. I think if Bo, for some reason, I have really nothing to back it up necessarily. I just think that Will Warren, with kind of the lack of velocity that he does have, and Bo Bichette's aggressiveness, I think Will Warren isn't in the strike zone, and especially in the middle of the strike zone enough that Bo Bichette specifically can take advantage of this guy. So I think if Bo does put his way or find his way back into the lineup, which it sounds like he might make his way back. It sounded like he was, at least on the broadcast, they said he was feeling a whole lot better on that Tuesday game than he was on the Monday, obviously, where he was scratched from that lineup. So Bo Bichette's back. That will be a massive plus to this baseball team. But if you go 1-1, whether you win the first game, lose the second, or lose the first game, win the second, wherever that does play out, I think I just said the same thing twice. It's pretty late. We had a long Canada Day. We enjoyed it, obviously. I hope you guys did as well. But yeah, I'm okay completely with, being okay is an understatement as well. But I'm very happy if this team does split these next 2 games and wins the series 3-1.
Yeah, I think that's what needs to happen, and you pretty much summed it up perfectly of sort of what my thoughts were as well. And of course, going into a Angels series, a White Sox series, and then an Athletic series before you hit the All-Star break, you're set up very nicely to then try to push for the AL East lead going into the All-Star break. So again, let us know how you guys, just your thoughts and feelings on what this game was, because man, it was a lot of fun to watch. These past 2 games were a lot of fun to watch, and sort of what you expect this team to go, I guess, heading up until the All-Star break. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings. Carter, my man, we're going to kick out of here for the night. We'll be back with the people, you guys, all of you watching and listening tomorrow after the 3rd game of the Yankees series. And then, of course, we'll be back to recap everything after game 4. So thanks a bunch for watching, listening, tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave us comments down below, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.